there is a thought you have been trying to put down. Not a dramatic one, not the kind that arrives with obvious weight and announces itself as important. A quieter one, the kind that shows up between tasks, in the pause between one sentence and the next, in the 3 seconds before sleep finally arrives. You redirect it. You give it a reasonable label. Old news, something you've already processed, something that doesn't need more airtime. And it waits. And then it comes back. Not louder, just sooner. The gap between each return has been getting smaller, and you have noticed that, even if you haven't said so. That thought, the one you keep almost finishing and then setting aside, is not a symptom of overthinking. It is information, and it has been waiting for a specific window to become undeniable. You are here because something in you recognized that this is that window, not the algorithm, not a casual scroll that happened to pause here. The part of you that navigates below the level of conscious decision brought you to this transmission because what has been trying to surface in you is ready to be named, not managed, not redirected, not filed under a category that makes it easier to carry. Named. Before we go any further, like this video, subscribe, and write in the comments, "I'm ready to receive," not as a wish, as a statement of where you actually are right now. Your nervous system is listening to what you say about yourself. Give it something true. Because what is happening in the sky today is not a gentle nudge. It is a full moon at 17 degrees Aquarius, directly opposed by the Sun conjunct Jupiter in Leo, with Pluto retrograde sitting at 4 degrees Aquarius. And that combination does not politely suggest that it might be time to look at what you've been carrying. It pulls the filing cabinet open. Everything you have been managing, containing, and organizing into something survivable is about to become visible in a completely different light. What happens when the light changes like that is the entire subject of what follows. Stay with this. There is a specific kind of person this transmission reaches. Not everyone who watches it will feel what you are about to feel. That is not elitism. It is precision. This portal, this full moon, this particular alignment of forces does not activate equally across all experiences. It activates for someone who, at a specific moment, possibly more than one day, stood at a fork in the road where one direction was clearly easier, where the path that required less internal honesty was right there, available and even socially supported, and instead of taking it, you chose something else. Not loudly, not with a declaration or a public statement about your values. You just turned quietly in a different direction, and no one saw it happen, and nothing confirmed immediately that you had chosen correctly. That quiet turn is the credential, not the suffering, not the waiting, not the amount of time you have spent in the difficult feeling. The turn itself, the moment when you chose the harder internal direction without any guarantee it would lead anywhere, is what opened this door. You didn't know you were building something in that moment. You were just trying to be honest with yourself in a situation where dishonesty was completely available. That honesty, practiced in private, without reward, accumulated into something that now functions as a direct line to what this transit is delivering. What you built inside yourself in those moments, quietly, without announcement, in the exact spaces where you could have chosen convenience instead, that is what made this window available to you specifically. This is not luck. This is not the universe rewarding patience as a virtue. This is something far more precise than that. And the precision of what opens next is directly proportional to the precision of the internal work you chose to do when no one was checking. So here is what is actually happening in the sky today and why it matters to you personally, not as a cosmic spectacle, but as a direct translation into what you are feeling in your body right now. There is a full moon. That means the moon has traveled to the exact opposite point in the sky from the sun, and the light between them is at maximum intensity. Every full moon pulls things to the surface, things that have been moving below the level of ordinary awareness, growing in the dark, building pressure. This one is in Aquarius, which is the sign that governs the mind's relationship with truth. Not comfortable truth, actual truth. The kind that doesn't adjust itself to fit the story you have been telling. Aquarius is electric, sudden, and it does not believe in comfortable illusions. When the full moon lands here, what surfaces is not emotional, it is revelatory. It doesn't make you feel more. It makes you see more clearly, and seeing clearly after a period of managed ambiguity can feel like a shockwave. On the opposite side of the sky, the Sun is sitting in Leo, and it is not sitting there alone. Jupiter, the planet that takes everything it touches and makes it larger, more significant, more impossible to ignore, is within less than 1 degree of the Sun right now. That is an extraordinarily close alignment. What Jupiter does to the Sun is amplify its heat. The Sun in Leo already burns with the energy of self-expression, of the heart making itself known, of the soul insisting on its own reality. With Jupiter right beside it, that insistence is not quiet. It is not subtle. It fills the room before it speaks. And then there is Pluto, retrograde, at 4 degrees Aquarius, sitting right beside tonight's full moon. Pluto is the force that deals in what is hidden, not hidden because it doesn't exist, but hidden because acknowledging it would require a level of honesty that reorganizes everything. Pluto governs the truth that lives below every convenient explanation. It moves slowly. It doesn't ask. And in retrograde, it turns that force inward, not outward into events, but inward into the places inside you where something true has been waiting patiently for the right conditions to become undeniable. The Sun and Jupiter in Leo are opposing this Pluto-Moon conjunction across the sky. What that creates is a direct line of tension between the heart's desire to be fully known, amplified to near maximum intensity by Jupiter, and the deep buried truth that Pluto and the Aquarius moon are pulling to the surface. This is not a comfortable transit. It is not designed to be. It is designed to make pretending structurally impossible. The walls between what you have been telling yourself and what you actually know have just become permeable in a way they have not been in months. This is not overwhelm. This is not a breakdown. This is the exact emotional pressure required to crack open what has been sealed. And what has been sealed in you has been waiting for exactly this. This portal does not open for those who simply want the pain to stop. It opens specifically for those who use the pain as information. There is a difference, and it is not small. Most people, when something becomes unbearable, find a way to make it bearable, which sometimes means making it smaller, filing it under a label that reduces its charge, moving forward in a way that functions as a gentle, ongoing avoidance. That is not a failure. It is a reasonable human response to a level of feeling that has no obvious outlet. But that is not what you did. What you did, and what you may not have had language for at the time, was stay in contact with the actual thing. You did not stop loving what was difficult to love. You did not numb the question because the question had no comfortable answer. You did not perform resolution for an audience that would have been satisfied with the performance. You stayed with what was actually true, even when staying with it cost you the social comfort of appearing to have moved on. That was not love failing. That was love being honest. Because love that adjusts its own reality to become more tolerable is not love at full capacity. It is love managed down to a size that fits inside a life that can't yet hold the real version. And you refused at the deepest level to manage it down. What you were left behind, those endings, those silences, those moments when nothing came back and you had to sit with that was not you being unworthy of receiving. That was them being unready to give. Not because they were bad, because the timing, the readiness, the internal condition required for genuine contact was not yet present on both sides. And the universe, which is not cruel but is precise, did not let the meeting happen before both conditions were met. And that was not the universe withholding. That was the universe building. What it was building was you. A version of you that does not confuse depth with imbalance. A version that knows the difference between real contact and the performance of contact. A version that has enough interior clarity to receive what is real without distorting it through the lens of old wounds. You are standing in that version now, not because you decided to become it, because the work you did, the real, invisible, unrewarded, internally honest work, built it underneath you, slowly, without your having to manage or direct the process. That is your current position, not triumphant, not finished with grief, grounded. And the ground beneath you now is solid in a way it has not been before. There is one more thing about what you built that most people walk right past, and it is the most important part of this transmission. Stay with this. The universe does not delay out of indifference. It delays out of precision. And the precision is not abstract. It is personal, specific, and exactly calibrated to the person you needed to become before this could arrive correctly. Here is what would have happened if this window had opened 6 months earlier or a year earlier. You would have arrived at it still carrying an unresolved question about your own worth. Not consciously, you would not have framed it that way. But underneath every exchange, underneath every moment of connection, the connection would have been quietly answering that question rather than simply being itself. You would have received what arrived and immediately begun using it as evidence. Evidence that you were enough, that you were chosen, that the question you had been living inside had finally been answered correctly. And connection that functions as evidence is not connection. It is confirmation seeking dressed as love. It collapses under its own weight eventually because no person and no relationship can sustain the ongoing demand of being someone else's proof. You would not have known you were doing this. That is the nature of the wound. It operates below the level of conscious intention. You would have given everything and meant every word, and still, underneath it all, the connection would have been about the question rather than about genuine contact, and that version of the story would have repeated something rather than completed it. The delay was not punishment. The delay was the universe refusing to let you receive something real while you were still using real things to answer old questions. What arrives now can be received as actual contact, not as confirmation, not as proof, not as the answer to a wound that has, in the time between then and now, quietly closed. The question that once required an outside answer has gradually stopped requiring an answer at all, not because you gave up on it, because you found, through exactly the kind of invisible internal work this transit is designed to reward, that the question was never about them. It was about whether you could trust yourself to know what was real without needing it confirmed from outside, and you now can. That change happened without announcement, without a ceremony. In the ordinary days when you kept choosing honesty about what you actually felt over the comfort of a simpler story. That is what completed, not time, that. There is someone in your field right now, someone connected to you in a way that this transit is directly activating, who has a room, not a physical room, an internal one. They built it specifically for what they feel about you. It is orderly in there. Everything is in its place. They visit it on their own terms, at moments of their own choosing, and when they leave it, they lock the door behind them with the specific, practiced efficiency of someone who has been doing this for long enough that the motion has become automatic. The lock does not work today, not because they decided to open it, because Pluto does not respect locked doors. Pluto is the force in the sky that removes the ability to maintain comfortable fictions about what is real, and the most comfortable fiction this person has been maintaining is that what they feel about you is something they can contain, that it has edges, that it stays where they put it. It does not stay where they put it today. Here is what their ordinary morning looked like, not dramatic, not a sudden overwhelming wave of emotion that announced itself as significant, something smaller and more specific than that. A detail, something they came across or heard or noticed in the peripheral of an ordinary task that had nothing to do with you and everything to do with you. A song in a public space, a phrase in a conversation that didn't belong to them, the specific quality of afternoon light at a time of day that they associate with you without having consciously cataloged that association. And something in them, the part that lives in the locked room, moved before the rationalization system could intercept it. They have a very good rationalization system. It has served them well. It constructed over time a set of reasons that felt airtight. The timing wasn't right. The circumstances were complicated. The distance between what they felt and what was practical was simply too large to bridge responsibly. These reasons were not invented from nothing. They had real material to work with. But today, those reasons are doing something they have not done before. They are visibly eroding. Not all at once. In small, specific places where the logic used to hold and today it doesn't, where they reach for the familiar explanation and find that it no longer quite covers what it used to cover. The physical sensation of this, because it is physical, not just emotional, is something like a low-level hum in the solar plexus that doesn't stop when they move to the next task. It follows them. It is present in the gap between one activity and the next. It is most acute in the quiet. And they have been filling the quiet more deliberately than usual, because the quiet is where the room becomes impossible to pretend isn't there. They have not made a decision. They may not make a decision today. What they cannot do today, what this transit specifically removes the capacity for no, is the comfortable certainty that the feeling is manageable. The room they built is full of something too large for the room. They know this. They have known it for longer than they would admit. Today is the day the knowing became too physically present to organize into something quieter. The recognition doesn't ask their permission. It arrived, it is real, and it is already changing the calculation, whether or not they have acknowledged it yet. You are standing at a fork right now, and the fork is not between two external choices. It is between two internal orientations, two ways of standing inside the same moment, two versions of who does the standing. No one is watching this moment. That is exactly what makes it the most important one. One way of standing looks like this. There is a background process running, a low-level monitoring of the situation, a constant gentle steering of thought away from uncertainty and towards something that feels more like resolution. A part of you that is always slightly ahead of the present moment, pre-routing for the possibility of pain, quietly gripping the shape of what you hope happens so that if it doesn't, the distance between hope and reality won't be too sudden. This is not anxiety in the clinical sense. It is intelligence that learned at some point in the past that preparing for the worst was safer than arriving at it unprepared. It tightens in the throat. It lives in the quality of thought that moves slightly faster than the situation actually requires. It is managing, and managing costs something every day, even when the management is successful. The other way of standing does not look dramatically different from the outside, but from the inside, it is a completely different country. There is no background process, not because the uncertainty has been resolved. It hasn't, because somewhere in the work you have done, you found that you can hold uncertainty without needing to steer it, without converting not knowing into urgency. The body is not gripping, the jaw is not preset. There is a quality of being fully inside this moment, not preparing for the next wave, not processing the last one, that has nothing to do with indifference and everything to do with genuine ground, not the ground of having received what you wanted. The ground of no longer needing a specific outcome to feel stable inside the not knowing. This is not detachment. This is trust. And trust and detachment are not the same territory. The question that lives between these two ways of standing is specific. It is not, what will happen? That question belongs to the first orientation. The question that separates them is this: can you feel, right now, the difference between moving towards something because you believe in it and moving towards something because the silence has become too expensive to bear? One direction comes from fullness, the other comes from depletion dressed as desire. They can look identical from a distance, they feel completely different from the inside, and your body already knows which one you are moving from right now before your mind has finished forming the thought. The answer to that question is already in the body. It arrived before the mind formed the words. Trust what was there first. There is a contract underneath this connection, not written, not spoken, not agreed to consciously, but as real as any agreement you have ever entered. Soul contracts are not romantic arrangements. They are not promises of forever, of return, of the particular shape of love you imagined when you first felt it. They are precise agreements about what must be activated in you. What must be confronted, what must be integrated so completely that it changes the way you understand yourself, not just in this relationship, but in every room you walk into for the rest of your life. This contract came to teach you the difference between control and faith, not the word faith as a spiritual abstraction. Faith as a specific internal practice, the ability to hold what is genuinely unknown without converting the not knowing into urgency, into management, into the constant low-level project of ensuring that what matters doesn't slip through the gap between what is and what you need it to be. The contract came because you had built over time a relationship with certainty that kept you safe and also kept you small. You needed outcomes you could see coming. You needed signals you could read accurately. You needed the reassurance of evidence before you could fully give yourself to anything, including yourself. And this connection arrived, specifically configured, to make that strategy impossible, to be precisely the thing that could not be controlled, could not be steered, could not be made to deliver the evidence on the timeline your nervous system required. Not to punish you, to teach you something that could not be taught in a situation you could manage successfully. Give the grief of this its full paragraph. Because it is real, it is genuinely painful to recognize that the thing you loved most was also the classroom, that the person whose return you have been hoping for is also the instrument of a teaching that was always going to be about you and your relationship with uncertainty, not about them, not about the connection, not about whether the love was real. The love was real, and it was also the vehicle for something that had nothing to do with them and everything to do with who you needed to become. That is not a comfortable truth. It does not make the loss smaller. It makes it more specifically painful, because now you understand what it was for, and understanding what it was for does not remove the fact that it cost something irreplaceable. The way Saturn enforces these contracts is not through punishment, it is through patience. Saturn governs what becomes permanent, and it does not allow a lesson to close until the lesson is genuinely, not performatively, integrated. Not until you can say you've processed it while still organizing your behavior around the old fear. Not until you've described the growth to someone while still secretly hoping for the external confirmation that would prove the growth was real, until the integration is structural, until you would move through a situation that once undid you and find that it simply doesn't undo you anymore, not because you're stronger, but because the fear it was feeding no longer has anything to feed on. That is what is happening in you right now. Not a dramatic completion, a quiet one, a recognition that the question, can I trust what is real to arrive without my having to manage its arrival, has stopped being a question you live inside. It has become something you know from the inside of your own experience. Not as a belief you adopted, as something you earned by living through exactly the period you have just lived through. The contract was specific, not forever, not even reunion, but the permanent, irreversible shift in how you understand what love requires of you, and that promise has already been kept. Your body has been registering this shift for longer than your mind has had language for it, and the signals are specific. They are not dramatic. They are the kind of thing that only becomes noticeable when you stop and inventory what is different now from what it was 6 months ago. There are things that used to feel dangerous, silence from someone you care about, distance, the ambiguity of not knowing where you stand, that no longer trigger the same alarm in you they once did. Not because you have stopped caring, because your nervous system is slowly, specifically, learning to distinguish between signals that actually indicate danger and signals that merely resemble the patterns of danger you experienced before. The threat response is recalibrating, silence arrives and you notice it, and the noticing does not immediately flood into the cascade of interpretation and anticipatory management it once produced. There is a small but unmistakable gap between the signal and the response. That gap is new. That gap is everything. Sleep is different. Not uniformly better, but the quality of waking has changed. Where there was once a residue from the hours of sleep, a weight that arrived with the first moments of consciousness, there is now something slightly lighter in the transition. Not every morning, but more mornings than before. The first thought does not always immediately organize itself around the unresolved thing. Sometimes there is a moment, brief, specific, of just being awake without the situation already present and demanding. A name, when it arrives, no longer carries the same physical hook it once did. You may notice that it passes through awareness differently now, present and then gone, without the body arranging itself around the arrival the way it used to. Not indifference, something more like weather. The name moves through and the space it occupied closes behind it without effort. Things that once produced a clear threat response, an unreturned message, an ambiguous exchange, a silence that extended past the point of comfort, now produce something smaller. Not nothing, but something the nervous system can metabolize without the full escalation protocol. The system is recalibrating what it classifies as emergency, and what it no longer classifies as emergency, it no longer mobilizes against. That reduction in mobilization is the shift. That is not numbness. You know the difference between numbness and this. Numbness is flat. This has warmth in it. This is the quiet of something that has been genuinely reorganized. The shift is not dramatic. It lives in the fraction of a second before the thought forms, the moment where, for the first time, there is nothing bracing behind it. When an internal shift is this complete, the life that surrounds it begins to reorganize without being instructed to, not through dramatic events or sudden changes of circumstance, through the quiet accumulation of decisions that now come from a different place in you. Decisions feel cleaner. Not because the choices are simpler, the external landscape of your life may be exactly as complex as it was, but the internal argument that used to accompany every significant choice, the back and forth between what you want and what you're afraid to want, between what feels true and what feels safe, has gone quiet in a specific way, not suppressed. The part of you that argued for the safer version has simply run out of material. It no longer has access to the old fear that gave it fuel. Where it once took real effort to hold a standard, to maintain what you knew you needed from a connection even when the connection itself was pulling you toward accepting less, it now takes effort to understand why it was ever negotiable. Something shifted at the root. What could live here before? What could gain purchase in you before? What could talk you into accepting a version of connection that was not full presence, cannot live here now, not as a decision you are enforcing, as a fact about what you have become. The things that used to feel exciting but cost you your interior quiet now register as hollow before they even fully arrive, not after you've engaged with them and paid the familiar price. Before, the nervous system has updated its evaluation system ahead of the conscious mind. It knows before you think about it. It has already rendered a verdict by the time the situation presents itself for consideration. The universe is no longer trying to guide you toward alignment. It is beginning to respond to the alignment you already carry. Synchronicities stop feeling like breadcrumbs and start feeling like confirmations, not of a destination, of a direction. The difference is significant. Breadcrumbs imply you are lost and being led. Confirmations imply you are already moving correctly, and the external world is simply acknowledging that. Other people's energy has become easier to read accurately, not because you have developed a special perception, but because the distortion is gone. When you were carrying unresolved wounds, every interaction was being filtered through those wounds. A slight emotional distance in someone you cared about would land as abandonment when it was simply tiredness. A warmth from someone new would feel like profound recognition when it was simply warmth. The wounds were not lying to you. They were translating everything through the only frame they had. Now, the frame has changed. What arrives is more likely to be received as what it actually is. The part of you that needed outside confirmation to feel certain has completed its work. What remains does not require reflection to stay real. It simply is. That is not a small change. That is the whole change. And with that change comes something that was never a decision, never a resolution, never a moment you can point to as the turning. A new baseline in what your nervous system will accommodate. Being held at emotional arm's length by someone who knows exactly what they feel. This used to be something you could work with, something you could be patient inside of, something you could give the benefit of the doubt, something you could frame as complexity or timing or circumstance. You can no longer do this. Not as a principled stance, not as a boundary you are enforcing. The nervous system simply will not process it as acceptable anymore. The way a key that once fit a lock no longer fits it after the lock has been changed, not because the key is different, but because the interior mechanism no longer corresponds to the old shape. What once worked here no longer works here. The fit is gone. Carrying the full weight of a connection while the other person remains comfortable in its ambiguity, this is another thing that has become biologically unavailable, not uncomfortable, unavailable. Where you once could absorb that asymmetry and continue functioning, could explain it to yourself as temporary, could sustain the full weight of a one-directional investment without the framework collapsing, you can no longer do this without an immediate, specific physical signal that something is wrong. The body reads the imbalance before the mind has decided what to do about it. It sends the signal before you have formed the thought. There is no more successful pretending. Explaining your depth to someone who uses your explanation as proof you are too much, this is the one that may be the most specific, the most personally recognizable. The experience of making yourself legible to someone, of offering the genuine interior of what you feel and why you feel it, and having that offering received not as intimacy, but as evidence of excess. You used to try to calibrate the offering, to give enough to be understood but not so much as to confirm the too much verdict. You are done calibrating, not because you decided to stop, because the calibration required a belief that the verdict might be accurate, and that belief is no longer available. This is not hardness. This is not the closure of someone who has decided to protect themselves by reducing their capacity. This is the opposite of that, This is what genuine discernment feels like from the inside, a clarity that does not reduce what is possible but removes what was never going to be real anyway, and makes the remaining space available for what actually is. You did not close yourself. You clarified. And clarity does not reduce what is possible, it removes what was never going to be real anyway, and makes the remaining space available for what actually is. If this soul steps back into your field now, they will not be returning to the same relational space they left. Not because you have changed your surface presentation. You haven't become someone different, haven't performed a new version of yourself for anyone's benefit. But the ground beneath you is different. And ground is what people actually feel when they return to someone. Not the words, not the appearance, the ground. What you will notice first if they return is that the old distortion is absent. The hope that used to bend every signal, that used to make ambiguous warmth feel like a declaration and careful distance feel like rejection, is no longer in the signal path. What arrives will arrive clearly. Their presence, if they show up, will be readable in a way it never was before, because you are no longer filtering it through the need for it to mean something specific. You will simply see what it is. And your body will tell you with a precision that bypasses the mind entirely whether what returned is genuinely different or is the same version of the pattern dressed in new language. The first question will not be, "Do I still want this?" You know the answer to that. The question is whether what returns is something that matches the ground you are now standing on, not in external presentation but in the actual quality of contact it makes available. Can they be fully present? Not in the sense of showing up physically or verbally, in the sense of actually inhabiting the exchange without the management layer, without the strategic distance, without the part of them that lives in the locked room while the rest of them occupies the conversation. That is what your body will be reading. And it will read it accurately in a way it could not have before. If they return, and it is genuinely different, if what comes back carries the quality of someone who has done their own internal work, who is no longer filing the feeling away but actually living inside it, you will know. Not because they say the right things, because the contact itself feels like contact. Real contact has a specific texture. You know what the imitation felt like. You will know the real thing when it arrives. If they do not return, if the window passes and the silence continues, what that confirms is something that does not diminish you. It confirms that what was real in you outgrew what was possible in that particular dynamic. Not a failure, a completion. And the completion is not a consolation prize for not receiving what you wanted. It is what you are actually built from now. Something in you is real in a way it was not before. That is not recoverable if it turns out the reunion doesn't happen. It is permanent, regardless. It belongs to you, not as a philosophy you are choosing to believe in hard times, as a fact about what exists in you that was not there before. Both doors open onto something real now, not because the outcomes are equal, because you are no longer different people depending on which one walks through. That steadiness is the thing. That is everything. If something in what you just heard landed somewhere specific, not just as a thought, but as a recognition in the body, do one thing right now. Like this video, subscribe to stay in this frequency, and write in the comments. The door is already open. Say it out loud as you type it. For your own nervous system, words spoken with genuine meaning complete something that silent reading leaves unfinished. You came here for a reason. Let your own voice confirm that you arrived. And if someone in your life is standing at their own threshold right now, someone who has been carrying a thought that won't stay filed, who has been doing invisible work that nothing external has confirmed, share this with them. You already know who. Trust that. This full moon in Aquarius is not asking you to do anything. It is not a requirement or a directive. It is a light. And what full moons do specifically is illuminate what was already there, already growing, already real, already present in you before you had any language for it. What is visible tonight in the light of this moon is not new. It is just finally clear. The thought that kept returning, the one you kept trying to file under something manageable, was never noise. It was the sound of something true insisting on being known, and the door it was knocking on has been open for longer than you realized. You are not waiting to arrive anywhere. You are standing in what you came here to find. That is not a promise about what happens next. That is a fact about where you are right now, and right now is where everything that matters begins.